First episode, let's get it.
Hey.
I'm excited.
First time. What's going on?
What's going on, guys?
What's going on? I'm Chad. This is the Skunk Ape Podcast. Just here to talk about all things exotic, from reptiles to avian stuff to even carnivorous plants. Let's get into it and see where we can go.
I like the idea of us not sticking to just reptiles. I know we've talked about this off the air, but we definitely want to be very broad with what we do.
Yeah, I just see that there's a lot of stuff already just narrowed down to strictly reptiles, and the world of exotics spans a lot further than that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, hell, just how many guys do you hear talking about? Like, I know your thing is the aquatic turtles. Nobody talks about that, at least that I've seen.
Yep.
I mean, birds and exotic mammals. I mean, nobody really talks about those. So,
yeah, I don't think I know of a single parrot podcast.
Well, it's probably because parrot people are a little crazy. But I can vouch for that because now I have two macaws. So
how are those doing, by the way?
Yeah, they're definitely rescue animals. They're taking their time to get used to you, and we're taking one step at a time.
I kind of want to get into it because I know, first of all, let's kind of get into who we are, our backgrounds and stuff. So when did you start keeping reptiles or exotic animals, and what got you into it?
Oh, geez.
I know it's a really loaded question.
Man. So I grew up in South Florida. Part of the reason why we came up with the name Skunk Ape.
Oh yeah.
And in South Florida, you have a lot of those Bahamian anoles and green anoles. So growing up, I would catch those.
Oh yeah.
Those and some house geckos, things of that nature. And then I remember seeing Jurassic Park in, what was it, 93? I'm putting a little bit of age on myself, and I was like, I love dinosaurs. So my parents took me to the local pet land, and...
Is that like a pet store?
Yeah, it was a pet store down in South Florida.
Okay.
They closed and reopened a few times.
Oh.
But ended up looking between two lizards. One of them was a green iguana, which arguably the worst starter lizard for anybody.
Yeah,
but in 1993, I mean, that was the lizard to get. My parents were deathly afraid of snakes, so I was not allowed to get snakes. And there was this other thing that intrigued me, and the only thing I remember is it was a monitor lizard, and it was awesome.
Do you remember what kind?
And I have no idea. I couldn't tell you. I don't even remember the color of it.
Hey, at least it was a monitor.
But I remember the guy, the person that was showing it to us, he set it on the ground, and it went crazy. Tried to bite him a few times, and my dad's like, yeah, we're not getting that. So I had an iguana. So that was my first reptile. And needless to say that we let some friends watch it while we were out of town, and they had it out in a room, and their Jack Russell Terrier got into the room and chased the iguana out of the room.
Oh my gosh!
Through the dog door. So I could potentially be one of the people that released an iguana into Clearwater, Florida. Sorry, I was a child. I knew no better, and I had my lizard entrusted with some close friends.
So how old were you at the time?
I was
roughly
7.
Okay.
I was 7 when I got my first lizard.
And how was it? You said it was running around the room. So was it a pretty chill green iguana?
Yeah, he was all in all pretty chill. I mean, he grew slow. I mean, but then again, we didn't know as much about things.
There's probably no care guides out there.
No, I mean, we had a 5-foot T8 fluorescent bulb that we got at Home Depot, threw it on there, a heat rock. I mean, that's just the time frame of everything. And then he had a heat rock forever. Never did any problems to him, but we now know that that's a problem. Even gave him the crushed walnut bedding.
Okay.
You know, zucchini squash, yellow squash, all the different squashes, iceberg lettuce, all the stuff that you know not to do now. And that's just what it was. And there was even this like flaky stuff that you added water to that you can mix in with it. He hated it, but
interesting.
My parents got it for him, and it was just like I couldn't even tell you who made this stuff.
Huh.
And then my dad built this big giant screened enclosure for it, and that's what he stayed in until.
That's pretty cool. How big was it? Did you say?
He was about 3 foot, 3.5 foot.
That's a good size iguana for like a 7-year-old.
Yeah, he was definitely pretty good size.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And then kind of got away from. I mean, trying to stay in the hobby, got away from the hobby for a little while until I got into high school, and then it was like, oh, I got a bearded dragon, and then I got another bearded dragon, and then I got more bearded dragons, and then I got veiled chameleons.
Ooh.
Veiled chameleons, more veiled chameleons. So it was veiled chameleons, bearded dragons, and then I had to, because I remembered my monitor lizard, I was like, I think I'm ready for a monitor lizard. And even back when I was in high school, it was still in the early 2000s, we didn't know a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Everything went into a top of open 40 breeder, right? A 40 breeder is a great enclosure.
Perfect
right?
size.
I mean, perfect enclosure for a bearded dragon or anything like that. Calcium sand on everything. And, you learn from your mistakes. I mean, I got a couple other things, but I had Savannah monitors, Nile monitors.
Oh.
The Niles were actually surprisingly chill.
Huh.
Had 2 of them together, and they did great until they just, all of a sudden died like any
just import
parasitic
stuff, I'd say.
Yeah, imported. I think I paid $20 for them at the flea market. Like
with the calcium sand, did you have any issues with it? And like, when did like the whole like anti-calcium sand thing start to rise and get big? Were you like,
oh geez,
was that far into like your keeping, or was it like pretty early on y'all realized that?
I stopped using it because it was so much more expensive than everything else. And like I used the Boneade sand. I always used the Boneade sand because it had that cool bag to it, and I was like, yeah, cool bag. It's got a T-Rex bones on it. And I was like, I don't want to feel like dusting all my crickets. And I mean, you know as well as I do, crickets in Florida, that's like the only insect you can feed. Unless, at the time, that was like, you had crickets or you had superworms. That's it. So I was like, I don't feel like dusting my crickets every day. So I'll just get calcium sand. And then at that time, a 5-pound bag of calcium sand was $11. I'm like, I'm not spending $11 on this. I could just go down to Lowe's and get play sand for $2. So I just loaded everything up.
Nowadays.
But the other bad thing too was like my dragons, my Uromastics, with the dye they put into the sands would actually change them colors.
Really?
Yeah. Like I'd have, and taking it back a little ways, my yellow Sandfire bearded dragon was actually orange because of the red sand that was dyeing her.
The reptile store I used to work at, we had someone brought in a leopard gecko that was kept on like, I guess, blue calcium sand, and it was like stained blue. So it still happens.
Well, and yeah, it's definitely not something.
It's a new morph.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that there's, and you can go to a store today, and people are still selling calcium sand.
It's crazy.
And
is there any any situation where it's beneficial or good? I can't think of one.
I mean, it could be. I mean, there's got to be a reason they produced it.
Yeah, like why would they just produce calcium sand instead of just normal sand? Dyed sand.
I almost wonder if the D3, like if you got calcium without D3, or if you were using the proper UV, if it would still have the same effect. Like you see all these people that aren't that get it and don't use, like, they're not keeping their stuff in the proper thing. That's why they got calcium sand in the first place. But you almost wonder if at the same time,
like, one an experienced keeper doing everything proper with calcium sand could, like, what would happen?
Yeah, I mean, because it's like, does it impact an animal? Well, I mean, you're on the same Facebook groups I'm on. Everybody crucifies sand. Like,
oh yeah, dude, I get crucified in my YouTube comments about it with all the bearded dragons.
Yep.
I'm like, I've seen them eat it and shit it out multiple times.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm still listening. My monitor's trying to escape this page, so give me a second. You can keep going.
But no, I mean, and I'm not to the point where I like to consider myself a halfway decent keeper. So I don't want to do any more science experiments about, hey, let's see if we can do this or see if we can do that. It's not fair. It's not fair to the animals at this point. I mean, the only thing I might do it with is maybe a ball python, but they're not going to be affected by sand in the first place, so why do it? It's not even the right parameters. But there's just nothing really. There's just no point to try to.
I feel like it could be used in like invert enclosures because they're not gonna. But I don't know.
Well, I mean, but is it worth? Is it worth it in the long run?
Yeah, is it worth the risk or exactly?
Like when I got, again, I've gotten in and out of the hobby multiple times because I'm just that old at this point.
When did you first get out and why?
I got.
And when did you get back in as well?
So I got out in 2000. I got out in 2007, 2008-ish. And I say got out. I mean, I still had some veiled chameleons.
Okay.
I still had a fish tank. Like, I had a saltwater fish tank. I had a couple veiled chameleons, and I had a pet skunk at the time, which was a bad idea.
Was it not delanded or descended, whatever?
No, it was descended. Everything was great about it. It just when you work daytimes and you have a nocturnal animal, it's just hard to make that transition.
Yeah.
And I honestly couldn't handle the stress of doing that and being a 22-year-old, I was in my 20s at the time.
Were you breeding the Veileds or anything at this time, or just solely keeping?
Just keeping. Okay. I mean, I had 3 of them, and the idea was to breed them with my roommates, and it just never came into anything. Mm-hmm. Again, it was, what if you'd have to hand feed him? Like, he would never be able to chase down crickets. You had to hold a cricket in your hand, and then he'd be able to grab them.
That's crazy.
Missed him down every day. I mean, it's
a lot. I dealt with chameleons in the past. They're a pain in the ass.
But if I had the money to get back into them, I'd get back into chameleons tomorrow. Yeah. I just think they're a really awesome species to have.
They're probably one of the coolest. Like, if you can keep them properly, they're probably the best lizard, in my opinion, to keep. One of the best.
Is that your monkey tail moving around behind you?
No, it's the rhino.
Oh, it's the rhino?
Yeah.
Okay. I was
the
see something moving around behind.
Fantastic.
Awesome. I'm glad she's doing good. So yeah, I got out in the 2000s, early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Still kind of kept tabs on it. I had friends that worked at pet stores. I hung out with them.
So you're still really in the community, just not keeping.
Yeah, I mean, and like trying to keep up on things, but not really keeping up on things. And then I really got back into reptiles. I really got back into reptiles right around the time of the pandemic. Just after the pandemic, I bought.
Okay. So
I have a now 4-year-old, but it was trying to figure out what is my child like. And we went to a Repticon, or not, I think it was a Repticon, up in Virginia, where we were living at the time. And he walks up to a 4-foot black and white tegu I think he was 2 at the time. and he just walks up to it and pets it like nothing. I'm like, are you kidding me? I wouldn't do that. So, and then I ran into Billy Albright with AHP Exotics. He's at all the shows around here, and he had yellow Aki monitors. And I was like, well, those are cool, but I always wanted to have Chems. Like, if I wanted a dwarf monitor species, I wanted Chems. He's like, if you have a kid like that, get Akis. Akis are great.
What?
And I almost...
sorry to interrupt real quick. With the Chems, like, were those, like, around? Like, because I feel like they're not as common nowadays. Like, they're kind of common, but, like, were they more popular back in the day?
No, I mean, dwarf monitors themselves weren't really popular.
Mm-hmm.
I just so happened to have a customer of mine that had a trio.
Oh, wow.
And he paid, and this is the scary thing, he paid $500 for the trio.
What?
In 2003.
That's
$500 for a trio. And I'm sitting here going, oh, that's really expensive lizard. I don't know that I can afford that.
Yeah, nowadays they're like, what, $1,200 per?
It depends on who you get them from. But
you
yeah,
won't find a trio for that price nowadays.
Yeah, trio. I mean, a trio, you're spending $3,000 on a trio, and
easily.
That's for babies.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, good luck. But yeah, I was like, I want Chems. He goes, well, since you have him, I would definitely look at Akis. So I almost pulled the trigger on getting 3 Akis from him, and I was like, no, I'm going to do my research, do my due diligence, see what these things are all about. So, ended up doing my research and came across 3 breeder, or everybody on the Facebook groups were like, if you want an Aki, get it from Rare Earth, Jeff with GIS Exotics, or GIS Herps, whatever he goes by now, or the infamous John at Sim Container.
Yeah, shout out John.
Shout out to John. And I've since met John, and John is an awesome guy. But
I hope he goes to Daytona.
He probably will. I know he is. I know for a fact he's going to Daytona because we've already talked to him about it. But John comes back and he goes, I only sell top-end Iraqis, and my top-end Iraqis are $750. And I'm like, well, I don't want to spend that for an Aki monitor, so I'm not going to do that. Jeff is now one of my good friends. Jeff didn't even respond to me. And I'm like, wow, I'm glad these guys come highly recommended. So Brandon at Rare Earth, he goes, hey man, sorry, I'm out of town. I'm actually in Costa Rica right now. I understand you're interested in Akis. Do you mind giving me your phone number and I'll call you when I get back to the States? I'm like, sure. So next thing I know, I'm on vacation down in Florida. And my phone rings from this strange number, and I answer it, and it's Brandon, and I spend 2.5 hours on the phone with Brandon talking about Aki monitors. And this is what it's... I was like, man, this is awesome. And then the price that he gave me for a trio was phenomenal. He sent me pictures of the day they pipped, everything.
That's awesome.
And
these were yellows, or were these his infamous reds?
No, these were his yellows.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't even ask him about the reds because he said again, I can't be more thankful of the fact that he was not trying to sell me anything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was, but he was more trying to understand who I was and making sure that his animals were going to
a good home,
a good place.
That's good to hear.
So he was like, if you want reds, I'll sell you reds, but reds are usually a little bit more bitey than yellows, so I was like,
did not know that, really.
Yeah, supposedly. Whether or not they are or not, I'm not sure. I haven't had any reds, so I can't answer that.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up with my 3 yellows in about 120 days. just because they weren't laid yet. He was expecting another clutch. Get them home. Never had a problem one with them. I mean, they were great.
That's awesome.
Every time. And Brandon would answer the phone anytime I called him. I mean, kind of scheduled the time, but he would call me back. And it was great. I couldn't be happier with Brandon with Rare Earth, and I will always send anybody to him
That's awesome.
for Aki. And it just so happened to, we kept the Akis. The Akis were great. And when we moved from Virginia to Alabama for work, I didn't have a place for my Akis to go when I first moved here because I moved a month before the rest of the family, and my wife is like, I'm not taking care of the lizards. So I left him down with Jeff at GIS, said he'd take care of them for me, which he did. And then I was like, you know what? I don't need them. I haven't seen them in so long after my family gets here. I hadn't had an opportunity to go 2 hours south to grab them. And I was like, Jeff, you want to just buy them off me? Because I'm not seeing them. He's like, I don't really have the money for it. And then 2 weeks before I move here, he ends up buying them off of me. And I'm like, I got all the room in the world now for reptiles. And then...
Do you plan on buying any babies from them?
He said he was going to give me a good deal on them. I'm gonna hold him to that. But I'd love to get another... I'd love to get some dwarfs. I'm actually trying to get John to hook me up with those Tristis that he posted today.
I have a buddy here in Florida who might have a pair still for sale. Yeah. And ships too, so if John can't hook you up, I can probably get you.
You want to talk about a very awesome yet somewhat expensive
dwarf monitor?
Dwarf monitor, Tristis, like the good Tristis, or I mean.
Yeah, I didn't.
But I think that's my.
I didn't even know those things existed until about 8 months ago when my buddy Kyle, he basically just kind of flips monitors, sells monitors, and he's had a pair or maybe a young trio raising up, and I was like, what are those things? And I was like, those look kind of ugly. But then I looked them up as adults, and I was like, oh, those are some beautiful monitors. And I didn't even realize how small they were either, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, well. I think they're one of the larger
dwarfs,
dwarfs, which is really cool.
I think they get the size like my mangroves, I'd say, or similar.
No, that won't. I mean, well, I don't know how big your mangroves are, but
like
I would say 30 inches.
Okay, so a little bit smaller.
Yeah, I mean, but then again, some Akis can get 30 inches. That'd be a big Aki, but they say they get about that big. And then now I have the privilege and I guess the ultimate luck of working with Chris with CM Exotics. I mean, the animals that I get to work with on a daily basis now, it's like I don't need to have anything. It's like it's like having a friend. It's like having a friend with a boat. You know, I mean, I don't have to have any of the expense of the boat, but I get to play with the boat whenever I want it. So I mean, I get the privilege to work with lace monitors, croc monitors, Togarensis monitors, which I loosely put Togarensis in there. Because
how long have y'all had those?
Really?
As long as I've been out here. I didn't know y'all have them.
Yeah, well, that's because it's impossible to get them out or do anything with them because he's like, I'd rather play with a Nile monitor than play with this guy. Like, he's just got that big of an attitude. We got sulfurs. We got water monitor sulfurs. We actually have a confirmed, or we have some lace monitor eggs in the incubator right now. Some parthogenic Celebensis eggs in the incubator, and we have a pair of Celebensis. We got a confirmed block last week earlier this week.
That's awesome.
Hopefully
y'all get some eggs from that.
Yeah, so we're gonna have some celebensis, and I get to work with sloths and genets, large spotted genets. I know how much you love those little things.
I love them. Those
and they're super cool.
Or quatamundis, however you
But
pronounce them.
they're neat.
Are they mean or are they
like
sweet?
I'm sure if you had a bottle baby, they would be a little bit more sweet.
Okay.
But no. And then the best thing about knowing Chris is the people that you meet along the way. Like going to a reptile show with Chris, you'd think he's a movie star. Like everybody's like, "Oh, you're." I'm like, "Dude, do you know everybody?" And then
it's not.
Like I've since met John and Dragna, and I'm like, I would never expect to meet these guys, or like Billy, he's over at Chris's house, and Billy Albright shows up. I'm like, geez, Billy, I didn't know you knew Chris. He's like, yeah, I've known Chris forever. I was like, geez, I like, okay, well, I just know you. He's like, yeah, I remember you from that. I'm like, yeah, well, okay. and then it's like, you go to shows, and it's like, oh, well, you're with Chris? You don't have to pay to go in this show because you're with Chris.
Yeah, he's a super
Or it's, it's like you just wonder, like, how have I been in this? How have I been around this industry so long and never have heard of this Chris Murray from CM Exotics?
Man, he was,
and that's because he's not in the show circuit anymore, so that's why we don't see him.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not that that's not going to change at some point in time, but
he was one of the first big reptile people I followed on Facebook years ago. I've been following him for a while, so it was crazy to even I'm just so psyched to even have an animal. They didn't know he didn't produce it or anything, but I got it from Chris. It feels so cool.
Yeah, you have a rhino iguana from CM Exotics.
Yeah,
and that's
I feel
awesome
proud to say that.
Yeah, and sorry, I'm a little distracted. I'm watching my hens kind of fight out in the yard. But I mean, now I'm working right now with gargoyle geckos. That's my own personal project that I'm working on with my son. Haven't grabbed a female.
Too.
Hopefully, we're gonna see some eggs from her as long as she lays in the lay box. Kind of one of those pros and cons to bioactive enclosure. It looks great. God forbid I have to dig up eggs.
They're the worst for breeding unless it's like dart frogs. I swear.
Well, but I can't. I don't know. I can't bring myself to do anything but a bioactive after having.
I mean, honestly
enclosures.
though, with a gargoyle, you leave the eggs in there, and if she doesn't lay in the lay box, they'll just hatch out in the cage.
I know, but then I have to pull them out of there and just have an empty cage, which I guess is going to be fine. But
so what was the first thing you bred then? And what was the first thing you produced?
Bearded dragons.
Bearded dragons. So how long were you doing that for? I definitely want to get into that albino.
Yeah, talk about a fluke accident, and yeah. So for when did 2000? It was right after high school, so 2004. I was just say 2004 was when I got my first clutch. Bred them up until 2007.
Oh wow, okay.
And then it was like everybody was doing it because it was so easy. So I wasn't getting the money out of them that I thought I should, and there weren't as many morphs per se as
nowadays
you would think, right? But I would keep some holdbacks, and there was one point where I had probably about 100 dragons.
Where did you sell them?
And I've never once been to a show. I knew a lot of the reptile places around where I lived, so I would most of them. I would just wholesale the babies.
Okay, that makes sense.
Hey, buy these, put them at your store, or I would say, hey, can I put these at your store? As they sell, I get 50% of
commission.
What you sell them for. But I mean, wholesaling them was the smart thing to do.
Still
just
is.
because you didn't have the feeding bill.
Where were you
And
at your peak? What were you producing? Like, how many dragons were you producing a year, roughly?
like I said, the most I ever had alive at one point in time was 100, and
Okay.
that was I had clutch that all hatched all within. I mean, I had four trios.
Okay.
So of my four trios, and all of them were in 40 breeders. Crucify me
And
if you want. This was a long time ago.
They were producing in 40 breeders?
Yep.
As a trio?
40 breeders. 40 breeders, they were producing. When I noticed the females started to dig, I would take them out, put them in a 29-gallon aquarium with a heat light on it and sphagnum moss, and they would lay in the sphagnum moss.
Whoa. That's so
and then I
cool.
would take the eggs, put them in a Tupperware with vermiculite on them, and use a little bit of moistened down vermiculite. Put the eggs in there with a little Sharpie dot on all of them, and I'd put cling wrap or press and seal on the top, and put them in the incubator, and just wait for little dragons to pop up.
So was it like did they have like reptile incubators at this point, or was it like a homemade kind of?
This was definitely a hovervator, like a hovervator. You turn the dial, and you had the little thermometer that would sit in the bottom of it, and you dial it in, and you'd have to pour in, water to keep the humidity right.
Whoa.
Yeah,
I've never even heard of that before.
Oh yeah, I mean it's like you've seen the styrofoam, the cheap. I mean I think I paid $50 for it.
I got one downstairs right now, one of those
styrofoam
ones.
Well, it was definitely one of those. Oh shit! She just laid eggs.
Mm-hmm.
What do we do? And I lived out in the country part of North Tampa, which is a town called Lutz, and I went down to Feed Depot, which was about 4 minutes from my house.
Mm-hmm.
Drove down there real quick, and I was like, I need an incubator. They're like, what do you incubate? And I said, my lizard just laid eggs. They're like, we got this. I was like, okay.
I'll try it.
And it was like, well, what temperature do you do it at? And what, this, that, and the other. And it was like 85 degrees. That's the best I could find on the internet. YouTube? Joke's on you. Figure it out. Like, so it was like 85 degrees. And you're calling people, you're like, hey, what do I do with this? And like, nobody knows anything. They're like, you got bearded dragon eggs? And like all the stores that I used to deal with are all closed now, and it's kind of crazy. But yeah, so I get them all, and it was like, you had failed attempts. Like the first one was, you put it in eggs, you put vermiculite in there, you put the eggs in there, you just make a little dimple and put them all in, and well shit, one hatched out of 22 eggs.
Mm-hmm.
Like my first clutch was 22 eggs. Like,
pretty good size
insane. So then it was, okay, do all this stuff, blah, 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 blah. And you're doing this thing, and well, okay, I finally figured out that if I do these styrofoam or the Tupperwares with the cling wrap, it works because the cling wrap breathes a little bit, and I'm getting good, like keeping the humidity in there. I don't have to fill this thing up as much, and it was like, hey, I'm hatching stuff to the point where I had a buddy of mine who was like, man, I have a problem with the humidity in my enclosure. I was like, why don't you put cling wrap on it? He goes, but I use Sims containers. I was like, if you're having humidity problems, why don't you put cling wrap on it? And it just so happened to be right by John, and John was like, all Python guys do it. So
my buddy actually has his sim container wrap with saran wrap right now for his electric blue day geckos.
Yeah, I mean, it works. It's something that we've been doing in the hobby for at least 20 or almost 20 years.
Yeah.
Or I've been doing in the hobby for at least 20 years. And then as you start to grow your breeding stock, I kept some, I sold some, I kept more, I sold more. And
did you ever
just
buy
like any
more?
morphs. What was that?
Did you ever buy more? Like, were you buying guys to freshen up bloodlines or add new morphs?
Well, again, when I started it, the only morphs I knew were you had your regulars, you had your yellow sandfires, you had your red sandfires, and you had one that I had was called a yellow snowball.
Interesting.
Couldn't tell you what she was. She had like very little patterns on her back. And she was like a creamy yellow color.
Yeah.
Awesome
Nowadays
lizard.
it'd probably be like a whiplets, but
yeah.
bearded dragon morphs change on a yearly basis. It seems like.
So I did get a few here and there, and it was like somebody was getting rid of a bearded dragon. I was like, oh well, I'll take that one. You know, I was working at a pet store, so it's like, okay, I could grab this one because you're just bringing it in. You're getting rid of it. Well, that's a male. Oh, that's a female. Okay, I can pair these. And then it was, well, I'm going to keep this female and this female, and then you lost track of who was who. So, like you were saying about the albino one, you know, you mix things together, accidents happen, and you end up with this genetic anomaly of an albino bearded dragon. And you just look at it, and you're like, you're different. Like, what?
How many clutches
okay?
in was this? Roughly.
Geez, this had to have been 20?
Okay.
At least 20 clutches in. So
like,
it was a while.
When you saw it, like, pipping out of the egg, like, you could just visually tell it was albino? Like, what was your first reaction or thought?
I only saw... I've only seen a handful of my clutches that I ever hatched pip. Like, I just wasn't home. I was 20-something years old. It was a hobby. I just set them. When I'd come home and I'd see little geckos, or little geckos, little dragons, I'd be like, oh, look, I have bearded dragons. I did something right. And so I didn't know. I came home and I'm like, why does this one look different? Like, why does this one look different? Everybody else looks exactly the same. This one looks different. Why does it look different? Now I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh. I said it. Red eyes, all white, no pigmentation. Was like an albino freaking dragon. And I'd have them in the grow outs, and I knew roughly when I'd have to go get pinhead crickets. Mm-hmm. So I'd buy boxes of pinhead crickets. And everybody was eating fine. Like, everybody was doing great. And I'm like, cool. And he lasted for about 6 months.
That's a pretty good time for albino bearded.
Yeah, and it was just kind of like...
And, like, you didn't, like, I'm assuming you didn't do any, like, force feeding or any of that. It just...
No, because I tried to raise them as long as they stayed the same size. I tried to raise them with their hatch mates together.
Yeah.
Right? There were no nipping tails. I mean, every once in a while you'd get some, but when you'd see somebody nip, you'd move them to a different... It was the one that nipped got moved, not the ones that the ones that were getting nipped. But he did great. And then, like, people, I don't know what happened. He just stopped eating, and I'm like, okay. Tried the pinky syringe, which if you've never used one of those, it's probably the grossest thing in the world, but the most awesome and metal thing ever.
I haven't used one personally, but I've seen them used before.
And I tried to do that. He took it, regurged it, and just went downhill really quick.
Yeah, I mean that's what happens with all the albinos, and even like when you start mixing all these bearded morphs, like that pied downstairs, like he's crashing. Like the pied bearded dragon, he's crashing. He's stopped eating. Like we gotta basically force feed him. His limbs are all stiff, and like there's really nothing we can do. We're just doing everything we can to keep him alive, but it's sad.
And part of me wonders that with these albino beardeds, because I've had one.
So
I almost wonder that if you imagine if you did a deep heat projector, didn't have any light on this guy, right? Because the UV is bad for people that or things that don't have melanin in their skin. It's why the most calm green iguana is an albino green iguana, because they're just lethargic and meh. Like they're,
Yep.
yeah, they should never be alive, but they're chill as hell. So I almost wonder if you kept it in a fully dark enclosure with maybe a black light and a deep heat projector, if they would survive. Like, but again, I'm not gonna. I don't want to try it.
Yeah.
But
I mean, no one's really. You can't. It's basically impossible just to try it, you know. But I know there's some guy. I think he's over in like the UK or something like that. And he's got like adults. Like he's gotten them to adulthood, and like they're doing fine. And like he. I think he had to medicate, like force medicate for months, like 6 to 8 months. Like every single day he was going in, like syringing them up, force feeding them up, and then eventually, like now they're fine, and he doesn't need to do that. But I was like, dude, that's
right.
like 6 to 8 months of daily going in and syringe medicating and force feeding a dragon is insane.
And at that point, what's the point of even trying to get that morph? You know, it's like when we see these. Babies. Well, I mean, like look at the spider balls, right? There's a reason why in Europe you can't do the spider ball pythons, right? And then you hear about these jaguar carpet pythons.
They're bad.
They have the wobble. I mean, like, at what point do we as keepers say, hey, look, as pretty as this animal is, it shouldn't be created, you know? And like, I don't know. I guess that's why I'm so drawn to monitors at this point, is because there's not people doing... I mean, granted, there's people doing crazy morphs when it comes to water monitors.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to me that there's all these morphs of water monitors. But for the most part, like even... Like, take the Ackie monitors, for example. You are frowned upon if you mix a yellow and a red Ackie monitor together. Like it's a big no-no. But so that's kind of why I'm drawn to monitors, because you keep your monitors just what they are. You know, you don't lose that. I
used to not be that interested in monitors. It wasn't until like about 2 years ago I got really into them.
So speaking of which, since I've just talked for this last 45 minutes, it seems like, about. And I guess it's because I've been doing it longer.
Dude, I mean, you've hatched an albino beardy. You got some shit to talk about.
Well, that is the... I have, like, that's a cool thing to talk about, but it's really... When you have the person that I get to, like I said, that I have the privilege of working with, that's nothing compared to what he has and has.
Dude, the shit that Chris has probably imported in would blow your mind. I bet.
like the leucistic fly river turtle.
Yeah, I think I know who he sold that to.
Yeah, we have a tokay that roams around the building, and it's okay with us because it eats any kind of roaches or anything that gets out. But you can actually hear it. I mean, it's probably 200 feet away from the house, and like you can hear it when it starts to call.
Oh yeah, it's so loud.
No, definitely not. Tokays are loud.
Yeah, and I was living in an apartment at the time, so they were all my bedroom. So it was like,
oh god,
yeah, I had 11 tokays.
Now, how many turtles do you have now?
Around 40. I'd say. I don't actually know the exact count. Last I counted, I was at 36, and I've added 6.
Just so everyone's aware, I mean, I'm 20 plus years older than Gavin, and like I grew up with a Ninja Turtle, so you figure I'd be the turtle guy, and I got to play with my fair share of turtles, but I'm not a huge turtle guy. Minus, I am trying to get some pink belly side necks off of
I got you,
Gavin right now, but and not for any reason, just because they're a pretty species of turtle. I mean, they don't. Let's be real. They don't sell for a lot. They're not like an ornate diamondback, or diamondback terrapin. They're not any of these fancy musk turtles. They're not an albino anything. They're just a really good looking. But you have ones that are het albino, right?
I do have 2 that are het albino. Yeah, I'm hoping to. Yeah. I want to get some visual albinos soon, but mine are still babies, so I'm not in a rush. That's the thing with the turtle game. It's just such a long wait process for everything.
Yeah, and we have three tortoises here, but it's like, what's the point of breeding tortoises? You have to wait till they're 7 years old before they breed.
Especially now, don't get me wrong. Sulcatas too. No offense to you, but like sulcatas just need to stop being produced. Like,
oh yeah, I mean we have a big male sulcata that just got moved out yesterday, and he's currently like, he doesn't get along with anything. Like, he'll chase dogs around, and he has destroyed the fence in the run. But surprisingly enough, he gets along with the chickens.
Oh, wow.
So him and the chickens are hanging out. But yeah, he finally went outside yesterday. The redfoot is in another enclosure outside, loving life. It's finally that point in time where they can be outside all year long. I can't wait till we move the crocodilians outside in their outdoor enclosures. It's going to be great. It's just going to be it's going to be fun. We got a lot of fun stuff. Got a lot of fun stuff planned this year. So, what is it that you are working on right now, as far as like your breeding stuff?
Breeding wise,
like, what are you actively breeding right now?
The mangrove monitors and turtles is pretty much, and bearded dragons. So, but that's more my girlfriend's thing. So right now, I'm currently working on light cycling the mangrove monitors.
Awesome.
Pumping them up with food. Just following Kai, honestly, about a year ago or whatever, whenever I got my initial mangrove monitor, about a year and a half now, I ended up immediately falling in love, and that was the first monitor I ever got, so I was super stoked for it. It fit my style a lot, and I just fell in love with mangroves and just everything indicus. So I very, very quickly, like within 3 weeks, got a female. Same age, like very tame. Like it worked out perfectly. Got it from a good buddy of mine.
Oh,
and so
now do you, aside from light cycling, because I know with some of our monitors, if you really want to simulate that wet season, do you have to do that with the indicus species or the indicus complex at all? Or I know Kai is like the man to ask.
Yeah, honestly, like
Kai's got his own podcast, so
yeah, we'll go check him out for sure. He's helped me. I'm kind of just following his steps. I'd have to check the notes again, but for the main part, it's mainly just food and light cycling. You're kind of always keeping them wet and humid. They like that, but I feel like doing a rain cycle or whatever you want to call that would definitely help them breed or induce breeding, because it does with almost every reptile, I'd say. But so I'm working on that. Is the biggest.
That's what we're trying to do with the croc. We're trying to figure out the croc monitor thing right now.
Yeah,
and
I've heard that the rain cycling with them is super important.
Yeah, and that's kind of the hard dealing with lizards that are over 8 feet long, is especially with ones that have the teeth that these guys have, is nerve-wracking. Yeah,
yes, but other than that, actively breeding, like I said, turtles. So I had so many turtles. Like I said, we have close to 40 turtles. So I'm working on breeding the pink bellies. I got yellow bellies. I have river cooters, red belly cooters. I'm hoping to get eastern painted turtles as well. That's about it, actually. And then like hybrids between all of those yellow bellies, cooters, and stuff. They're type guys like crazy.
I need you to help me find something that'll survive out here in the wintertime, because I have a 20 by
slider.
No, a 30 by 30 pond that's 14 feet deep.
Oh, if it's 14, you can pretty much you can do pretty much any species of North American turtle.
Yeah.
Like any of the sliders, any of the cooters. Painted turtles would be an awesome choice. But go to the bottom and like hibernate. I can probably find you a cooler species. I think painted turtles would be one of the coolest ones to go with. Get the different painted turtle species. They're super beautiful. It's just that's a huge area for painted turtles.
And I also have to worry about them attacking the ducks. Because once the ducks get full size, the ducks are going out there.
Yeah, and I don't think the painteds would mess with them.
I'm trying to debate on if I want to get some black swans, because I really want some black swans to go on. But, I have a weird affinity for birds.
We'll do a whole episode on birds. That'll be fun. Maybe the next one.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, yeah. No, we'll hold off on birds for a little while because I'll nerd out and.
Birds we're already like an hour in, over an hour in.
But yeah, man, I was really impressed to see the amount of turtles you have. I mean, it's just, and you have them everywhere. Like I think you finally got them out of the bathtub, but you did have them in your bathtub at one point.
For anyone wondering why they were in a bathtub, it was winter season, man, and I didn't want to bring a whole 200-gallon pond inside, so I just threw them in the bathtub, man, and they were fine.
I mean,
it's the old school way.
They look. They're all healthy.
Yeah.
You got to go check out the YouTube videos because he takes care of them very, very well.
I do a little extra, to be honest. I do too much.
It is a little bit, and the fact that you have names for all of them and you remember
not all
each one of them.
Not all of them. A good mainly the beginning turtles, but
okay,
mainly the beginning turtles. The babies kind of have names.
So you have one that's in your baby tank now. It's not one of the soft shells. What was it? It was. I want to say it was a must. I saw it on that YouTube video that you had. But it was like. Was it the Rio Grande?
Yes, the Rio Grande Red Ear.
Was that the one that had all the crazy stripes?
Yes.
And stuff like that on it? Yeah. And then you also have that, what was it, the Indian spotted turtle?
Mm-hmm.
Was it the Indian spotted? That thing was cool, too. Yeah, and again, I'm not a turtle guy, and now I'm sitting here looking at all your turtle videos. I'm like, I need some turtles.
I want to create more turtle nerds. They're like I said, I used to be a hater. And the monkey tail skinks, too. I'm working on trying to breed those.
You have, of all the things you have, you don't mention the coolest, by far, the coolest thing that you have is your monkey tail skinks. Yeah. You're like, oh yeah, I'm working with mangrove monitors and turtles, and my girlfriend's got bearded dragons. I didn't mention my, six monkey tails you got?
Four, but yeah.
Okay, 4 monkey tails. Like that would be like me saying, "Hey, I got all this stuff that I'm working on, but I don't have 2 sloths that I get to work with every day."
Hey, you didn't mention the sloths. You barely said anything about them.
I mean, they don't do much. But they kind of.
Neither do the monkey tails. They're asleep during most of the day.
I will tell you, I didn't mention the Doomerals boas either, but that's the next thing that we're trying to work on. So I mean, but. To be fair,
they're not monkey tail skinks.
Like you said, they're not monkey tail skinks. I mean, like I mentioned the cool. Oh, sorry, I didn't mention the Spencer eye monitors either. Okay, I'm sorry. Like,
yeah, I've so the monkey tails was really crazy. So I've always loved them. Like back at the alligator farm, we had a pair over there, and I always loved monkey tails. I just thought they were the coolest thing ever. And then once I got into the private side, I learned that. It's very, very hard to get them in captivity nowadays, and when they do come, they're very expensive. So I was like, all right, well, cross that off the bucket list. Like, I'm never going to get that more likely. And then I guess 3-4 years later, I ended up with 4 of them somehow. Crazy deal, man. I just saw a post on Facebook, and it somehow was legit.
And yours seem to be, I mean, you've gotten bit by them, but who hasn't? It's like the old saying, anything with a mouth can bite. But yours are incredibly tame for what I've seen for monkey tails.
It does depend on their day. Like, some days I can open the cage and they will charge me. Like, full on, like, they're running out of their hides to me, like, mouth open, like, trying to bite me. But other days, like, I'll open their cage and they'll run out to me, like, calm and just, like, crawl up on me and be super chill. So it really just depends. Like, they're about 50% of the time they're awesome, super sweet, and then the other 50% of the time they're assholes. Just gotta catch them on a good day.
But they really are. I mean, I've had an opportunity to get a monkey tail, and it's like you like look at him and you're like, oh, you're cool, and then you go to try to interact with him and you're like, you're not cool anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, but yours are. yours are cool, and they're honestly some of the better looking monkey-tails that I've seen
they're
too.
Gorgeous. They're supposed to be captive born. Some lady posted them for sale. She posted 2 pictures of monkey tails, and it was of both the males. So, and at the time, these guys were like pretty deep in shed. They weren't in the best environment, so they were crusty looking. They didn't look like good monkey tails. But I was like, you know what? Let's just message her. Like, I know it's going to be out of my price. I even started off the message. I was like, hey, I know this is way out of my price budget, but just out of curiosity, how much are you asking? And she messaged me back, and she's like, oh, I have. She explained she has 4 of them, all over 2 years old, monkey tail skinks. I was like, I gotta make this work. And so
you're gonna make everybody jealous for monkey tails.
Yeah, I'm sorry,
like,
everyone. I'm sorry.
That's back
the price
when I
of
used to just like deal with all this stuff. Like, I should have gotten my Australian frilled dragons for $900 with a 6-foot tall cage and a breeding pair.
Mm-hmm.
And I was stupid and didn't pay the $900 for 2 Aussie frilled dragons. Now they're selling for. John's got one. He's selling for what? $2,000?
Yeah, something like that's crazy. Yeah, it was such an unbelievable opportunity, and I was able to get it worked out and get it done. Yeah, hopefully I can get some breeding action with the monkey tails. That would be an absolute dream. But I'm not really rushing them. I'm kind of letting them be. I weighed them all. Or I weighed both the females a couple weeks ago, and they're about a year off from breeding. So
yeah,
which is pretty nice.
We're hoping to get our incubator, or the monitor incubator, more full.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we got, like I said, we got the celebs that are working.
What kind of incubator do y'all use?
It looks like
we've talked about this so many times. I always forget.
I don't. It looks like a sea serpents. Chris is probably going to hear this and say, "No, you idiot! It's this." And I'm like, "Oh, well, okay." I deal with the quail. I breed the quail. I hatch the quail out. I don't do the monitors. I've never. I mean, I've done what I've been comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you start going over 200 days, it makes me nervous when it comes to incubation.
Yeah. I need to get me an incubator. That's my biggest thing right now.
CJ from
Gentle?
What is it? Monitor Ops. Yeah, CJ Gentle. CJ Gentle? CJ. Yeah.
I feel like CJ Gentle.
With Monitor Ops. He's got a sea serpent he's selling right now.
Okay, I'll have to check. I'll have to hit him up after this.
I mean, I think it's $1,000, so it's a really good deal. So if anybody is looking for an incubator, CJ, I don't know if you've sold it, but I know you're selling it for like $1,000 is what I've seen it for. And when you go pick it up, Gavin, you can come swing by here and see all the.
I'll bring the pink bellies.
You can bring the pink bellies, and I'll let you play with the trig and the other crocs. I mean,
before we end this podcast, let's what is something like this year that you're looking forward to the most in producing or getting, like adding to the collection?
You mean not the pink belly side necks?
Hey, that's the most exciting thing you're for of the year. I'll feel pretty happy.
You know, so I have a 4-year-old son, as you know, but everybody else doesn't really know. So I got.
Well, that's what you were saying got you back into the reptiles, right? Was Emmett?
Yeah, that's really what got me back. Emmett really got me back into the reptiles. Seeing him, just love the animals, and now it's gotten to the point where every time he asks for something, I buy it for him. But I got the gargoyle geckos for him.
Okay.
And I got some. We got some really nice gargoyle geckos, thanks to my friend Chris Jones. And our big female's gravid. We have another smaller female, which I need to find another male for. So I'm really hoping that Emmett can start producing these gargoyle geckos because he's doing a great job with them. And the other thing that I am trying to add to, I guess the other thing that we're working on too is getting these sulfurs bulked up so we can do that.
Yeah.
One thing that we do want to work on too is we have a very large male exanthic water monitor.
Ooh.
And we have a very, very nice fertile celebensis female. So we want to cross a Celebensis with an Exanthic. See what kind of fun stuff we can come up with that. But again, that's if everybody reacts well together and 200 plus days in an incubator. So
yeah. And yeah, I mean, you would have to breed back to get visuals, right?
Yeah,
but I mean that's not too long though. Like unlike the turtles, you're not waiting like 5 years. That's honestly one thing that got me into the turtles. I mean, we never really talked about that, but the waiting game. Like I love the fact that you have to be like. It's not something you can just rush. Like you can't just buy in and become one of the biggest breeders and producers like you can like with ball pythons. Like you can't just buy in. It's not like you can get like discovering a new morph for a turtle. So like say. Like, for example, like, I know of a population of melanistic three-striped mud turtles nearby, and I would love to make something work, but sadly they're three-striped muds, and I don't think you can legally collect them. But, like, if I wanted to produce those, and, like, produce melanistic mud turtles, I would have to take one, breed it to a normal, and, like, at that point, they got to be at least 5 years old to even breed, or around that size, usually around that age. And then you have to take up those babies and then wait another 5 to 6 years to grow those up and then produce them back and then just hope you hit a visual. If not, you got to wait another years until you can produce it. It's just a long process. It's definitely a waiting game, which I don't know why, but I definitely enjoy that aspect of it. I like not being able to rush it. Like, it's also another reason why I'm big into, I love the green tree pythons. Like, I'm planning on starting a good collection again. I used to have a bunch of BX, but they're another thing you can't rush to breed. Like that's something you gotta go through hell to breed a green tree python.
Oh, and you got Aiden over there. He's 17 years old, which honestly I used to talk to Aiden a lot, and I was super excited for him. And then I found out he was 17 years old, and I'm like, I'm 37 years old, and I'm talking to this 17-year-old like he's my pal, and I was like, that's a little weird to me. So I'm gonna stop. Like, sorry, Aiden, it's nothing against you. It kind of was one of those.
You're talking about Bradley? Like, Aiden Bradley?
Yeah,
dude. He just posted in the group,
and he's doing, and it's like you want to talk about people that are doing awesome things. You got Robert Fox doing the Niles now, captive bred Niles. I mean, Aiden doing the captive bred.
Dude, shout out to my boy Parker's Park. I don't know if you heard, but he just hatched out the world's first Bohemia.
Yeah. I saw you posted that too.
Yeah, that's crazy to me.
This year is becoming a really awesome year for
monitors.
For
it's
monitors.
The monitor year. I've been saying that for a little while now. 2024 is the year. We got Mike Stefani producing the world's first Togianus. I don't know how to pronounce it. Toginas.
Yeah, Togos.
Yeah, producing the world's first of those. We got Brian Duraka, however you pronounce the last name. First blue tails will be hatching. Mm-hmm. We got some crazy shit. Then I don't know. Like, have you heard of Cody Joe? He's up in Canada. He works for he owns the reptile shop.
Oh yeah. I know.
Dude, he works. Talk about someone that works with some insane stuff and is underrated.
Mm-hmm.
He has produced mangrove monitors, quince monitors, peach throats. He's gotten eggs from his blue tail monitors like 4 or 5 times. They just don't lay in the lay box.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he's done some crazy impressive stuff up, and he's up in Canada doing some crazy work. He's about to get torch monitors. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
I have.
He's about to do some crazy work with the Indicus stuff this year. So it's crazy to see the monitor game. And we got, what is it, the new Asian water monitor morph is supposed to be produced this year.
Well, and then you have, again, with all the albinos, the T+, the coral albinos, and this, that, and the other thing. I mean, it just
crazy.
It's just crazy. I mean, I'd love to see some other stuff coming in. I'd love to see more people with savannas. You're not seeing too many people. People supposedly are breeding them in the States.
I call bullshit.
You're not seeing too many people promote it. I know Alan Stevens from Origin. He was working on them. I don't know if he's had any success. We called out Alan and Kai. Jeez, you guys owe us some props, guys.
Dude, shout out him, Kai, too. We didn't talk about him doing big stuff with monitors. Like, his Kai Islands are going crazy.
Oh, man.
I need one of those. That's on my list, for sure.
And when it comes to it, and Kai is probably one of the coolest and nicest. Like Kai will go above and beyond to help just about anybody out.
Yeah, like I said, when I first contacted him, I just asked him like, "Hey, do you like?" We originally started talking about grasshoppers. You know, all of his stuff is his grasshoppers. Yep. He helped me like with how to set them up, how to get them going, and then he called me and we had like a 3-4 hour conversation on the phone about just breeding mangrove monitors, and he gave me basically the step-by-step process for what he's done and his success, and I wrote it all down in a note and I have it all typed up, and I'm kind of roughly going off of that.
I talked to Kai about the fact that we were rescuing a black and white tegu from a pet store, and he was just utterly destroyed. And I was like, Kai, what do I do with this? He goes, well, just FaceTime me real quick and show me a video of everything. I'm like, okay, cool. And like, so Kai
told you to gut the entire enclosure.
Kai, if you actually listen to this, thank you so much for being you and being freaking awesome, because I can say that I wouldn't be where I'm at today without a lot of your guidance and honestly your podcast. I would not be into it as much as I am. So
Kai is the sole reason that I got into monitors, as I'm into monitors. Like, I would not be as obsessed with Indicus Complex if it wasn't for listening to him on Trap Talk and his podcast and all that.
Yeah, Kai does love his Indicus. I am the only Indicus that I like is the Peach Throat, but I am different.
They're a good choice though.
I like my African monitors. Let's be real. Yeah, follow us on all of our socials.
Yeah, we have all the socials down in the corner. Go ahead and give us a follow for updates on the podcast and just what we keep and all that.
Thanks a lot for everything, and we'll see you next week.
See you in the next one.